Welcome back to Console Crapshoot, where we spin a wheel to play a random video game on original hardware. Carl's been giving us some really wacky stuff to play lately. His wheel has been full of surprises lately, and I hope that continues. Okay, we got the PlayStation 3. That's a fun surprise. It's always cool to play something a little newer, a little fresher. And let's see, we have 1,126 games on the PS3 wheel. Puppeteer. Cool, this looks interesting. I don't know really anything about this one, but I see it's by Japan Studio, so that's a real good sign. Japan Studio usually puts out quirky, really high-quality things. Team Ico, whatever is part of Japan Studio. They make Shadow of the Colossus, which is one of my favorite games of all time, so my interest is piqued. So right off the bat here, I can tell that the presentation is going to be the star of this game. It looks pretty much like you, the player, are a member of the audience, and you're watching like a stage play with puppets. You can hear the audience oohing and eyeing and cheering. The stagecraft involved here is pretty much impossible in real life, but also rooted in reality. The stages physically flip and move, props get wheeled in from off stage, and your main character and your assistant character have their own spotlights, have their own stage lights that are always focused on them. And the story here is basically you're this puppet. I guess you're a boy that was turned into a puppet, I'm not quite sure, but the bad guy cuts your head off. And you're still alive, and you go around the game collecting other heads. And the other heads give you some kind of, I don't want to say abilities, but they can be used in certain situations. I'm really digging the look of this game. Some of the characters look like puppets, some of them look like they're made of paper mache, some of them look like they're made of wood. It's so visually interesting and creative, I cannot get enough of this. So as the game goes on, you get some major items, usually after every act, every boss that you beat. The main one being these magic scissors. You can kind of basically fly with these scissors because a lot of the items on the stage are made out of paper, and you can kind of use the scissors to make your way upwards. There are other items that you unlock as you go. There's a shield where you can deflect beams and destroy things. There's ninja bombs where you can blow stuff up. There's a grappling hook, which comes a little later, which is really fun. I did notice something, unfortunately, while I was putting this together. I made a rookie mistake. My PS3 was set to surround sound mode and not stereo, so my computer did not record the voice tracks. So everything you're hearing here isn't the complete audio, and ironically, the voice tracks are one of the most interesting parts of the game. First of all, I'll say all the voice actors are really good, really talented. A lot went into the performances, very over the top, but very fun. A lot of these sequences go on a little too long, sometimes a lot too long, sometimes over 10, almost 15 minutes. Characters are just talking and talking. There's a lot of exposition. I wouldn't say it's boring, it's fun, but it just goes on a little too long. Also, while I'm bringing up negatives, I think the platforming itself, if you take away all that amazing visual presentation, and again, the visual presentation is incredible. It's so incredible that you may not notice that the platforming itself is a little generic. It's a little simple. It's a little repetitive. But again, the visuals and the set design and all that is so interesting and so fun that you may not even notice. It certainly didn't stop me from enjoying the game. It's fun. Hard stop. Oh, one more little negative is something that was all too common at the time this game came out, and that's QuickTime events. The boss fights are really good. They're really well designed. There's some fun dynamics in taking the bosses down, but then at the end of every boss, you're met with a QuickTime event. It's just like press X, press square, press circle. You do it in that succession, and it plays out kind of a cinematic defeating of the boss. Again, it looks really cool, but QuickTime events are a little lame in my book. Something else I realized while reading up on this is if you have a second player and a PlayStation Move controller, then your second player can use the Move controller to move around your little assistant character. That's kind of fun, but I do not have a Move controller, believe it or not. There's little gallery modes. You can look at all the different heads that you collected. There's also some storybook modes where you can learn about the lore of the world. And I've got to say, I really love this. This was a pleasant surprise. This has got to be one of the most underrated PS3 exclusives. I never heard of it. I'm sure a lot of you never heard of it. And even if you have, you got to admit this one flew a little under the radar. It was sort of towards the end of the PS3 life cycle, and it's a cutesy platformer, and this was a time, kind of still is a time, of shooter games or big epic action adventure games, and I could see why this flew under the radar, but it's a shame. It's a one-of-a-kind experience, and speaking of that, you might be thinking it's kind of like Little Big Planet, which was also a PS3 exclusive. I certainly thought that, and yeah, it sort of breathes the same air, it sort of has the same vibe, but it's a very different game. It does its own thing, its art design is incredible, it has its own style, and if you like creative, quirky games, and if you like platformers, you have to play this. It's fantastic. So let's get to a rating for Puppeteer on the PlayStation 3. Yeah, I think I said it all here. It's just kind of a creative, achievement. It's beautiful. It's made with a lot of love. It's not a perfect game. It has its faults, but it's so fun and interesting. Who cares? Forget about the faults. Have fun with it. This game's incredible. It's an easy and dramatic 4 out of 5. I didn't quite beat it in time for this video, but I will continue playing this. I'm like 3/4 of the way there anyway. So if you ever played Puppeteer, I would love to hear what you guys think of this. I went into it completely cold. I saw one video on it real quick, but I didn't watch a ton of reviews. And yeah, once again, a very interesting pick this week from Carl. He's on a roll. I could be jinxing it simply by pointing that out, but that's the fun of the wheel. We'll find out next week. See you then.